You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome to this special episode of KCSN Update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast here at KC Sports Network, presented by our friends over at DraftKings. We've got a special guest coming on to talk a little bit more in-depthly about, in-depthly is a word, I just made that up, but a little more in-depthly about the big storyline coming out of the Chiefs Super Bowl win over the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was the Chiefs offensive line and their performance. So let's bring somebody on who knows a thing or two about offensive line and paying attention to all that good stuff. And Mr. Geoff Schwartz. Geoff, we appreciate you joining us and talking a little Chiefs O-line against the vaunted Eagles pass rush.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, man. I mean, what a game. They played fabulous. Yeah, it's a game where, like you watch even both teams play and you come away thinking, wow, like both teams, I think, gave their best effort. And I know the Eagles lost and they feel bummed about that. And I'm sure losing the Super Bowl isn't very fun, but you feel like both teams gave their best effort. And that's always what you want in a Super Bowl.
Before we get into some more specific questions about what you saw, and now that we've had a few days to go back and rewatch and kind of, pick apart and look kind of more in-depthly, I said it again, about this game. I want to give you a chance, the Big Boys Club, the stuff that you do with Duke Manyweather, as far as like the offensive line getting ready for the draft, because a lot of our subscribers, a lot of people listening, getting ready for that. Can you just kind of give you an opportunity to promote that a little bit and tell us whatever you got coming up this year, what you've done in the past?
Yeah. So, we have the Big Boys Club. I hope we get season 3 going here soon. I'm not quite sure on the green line on that quite yet, but we have O-line masterminds that we have this summer. But that's just Duke, man. I mean, it's Duke and Lane Johnson putting that together. They'll have that summit going this summer. It's a lot of fun. Duke's training all those combine guys, getting those guys ready for the combine, which, I mean, you go from Super Bowl right into combine prep like almost immediately. It goes fast. Like, I'm transitioning my mind already over to watching college film and preparing for that side of football. So we're always working, man. It never stops. It never football. There's never even the months are supposed to be slow. May, June, July, things like that. There's always stories and topics, and for us, it's preparing for the season and doing those fun things with Duke and Masterminds.
For sure. No, you guys have done phenomenal stuff. Whenever it comes to offensive line, I just go to you two and Brandon Thorne. It's just like, I got a question. Like, can somebody help me out with this? Or if I'm trying to learn something, go to you guys for sure. And I want to get your thoughts. The reason, talking through this, your expectations going into Super Bowl 57. And I know we at KC Sports Network, we spent a lot of time talking about that matchup in the trenches on both sides of the ball. But specifically for the Chiefs offensive line. And now that we've heard the players talk about it afterwards, they definitely heard all the talk and they took it personally as far as talking about the Eagles pass rush and the way they did and how dominant were they going to be, not is there an opportunity for the Chiefs offensive line to come out and kind of insert their will and play the way that they did. But before this game, what was your expectation of what that matchup and what that battle was going to look like?
I was curious to see how they game plan. If you look back to the Niners game, this was probably the best way to look at it. The Chiefs had a great game against the 49ers, and the game plan was so diverse in the way they attacked most really Nick Bosa. I think Armstead played in that game, but wasn't 100%, or maybe he did play in that game. I don't recall if he played in that game. But just the way they attacked Bosa with the variety of the offense. And that game kind of piqued my attention on how they might attack really Riddick, right? Like how they're going to attack 7. And it did play out that way, the way they went about it. But my thing all week was like, look, the Eagles' offense line is great. Don't get me wrong. But the Chiefs also have 2 All-Pros. Like Tooney and Creed are the 2 All-Pros, right? And I think Orlando Brown made the Pro Bowl this year. Pro Bowl voting to me is not, I don't really know how I kind of think about that so much anymore since Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl. I don't really know how I feel so much about the Pro Bowl anymore. But, it's not like the Chiefs have bums at right tackle and right guard either, right? And, if Andrew Wiley is your worst offensive lineman, you're doing pretty good. Like that the bar is pretty high in Kansas City for offensive line, especially at right tackle. And I thought they could do things schematically to help themselves out, and they certainly did in this game. And one advantage that Chiefs have that not a lot of people talk about, and the smart ones obviously do, and we understand it, is this offensive line built to withstand 45 pass reps a game? Not always. Are they able to withstand 12 third and longs? Probably not. But guess what? They're often not in third and long, right? They win. They're number one in the NFL on first down. Number one in the NFL on second down, right? They're number one in the NFL at converting first downs into first downs. And they stayed out of third down. I remember there was a clip I watched Inside the NFL, and Matt Nagy at some point, I think the first or second drive, was like, dude, no third downs. We're doing great, right? If you keep yourself out on a third down, you don't have to worry so much about the pass rush pinning their ears back. And then we get to the game, only 8 third downs for the Chiefs. And I think the longer ones, they struggled. It wasn't perfect with the long ones because, guess what? It's hard to pass protect on 3rd and 8+. They're pinning their ears back. They're coming after you. But if you keep yourself out of those situations, you don't have to worry so much about it. So I expected the Chiefs to play better than most did because I think the offensive line is a little underrated. And they came out with a fabulous game plan. I thought it was Andy Reid's, and give Andy Heck credit as well, as I know he does the run game as well. It was maybe their best run scheme game in a long time. I can't recall a time when they stuck to the run. It was diverse. It was multiple. They did so many different things. And the offensive line, just, you can tell the games when the run game is emphasized during the week. And the games where they say, like, we want to run the ball. We want to, be physical up front. We want to get after it up front. And, you could tell the games where that is emphasized from the first game plan. And this is definitely one of those games where it was like, guys, we need to run the ball. And the offensive line came out early in that game, and they continued throughout the game of just hammering the Eagles' defensive line. And I just love the game plan. It was a really, really good game plan.
I want to ask you about the diverse and multiple and have you kind of extrapolate on that. For people who are listening, I think I know, but at the same time, I want to learn. That's why I love talking with you guys. I always learn something. My point going into the game about the Chiefs' offensive line, it wasn't who's going to win up front. It was that if you give Andy Reid 2 weeks to game plan, knowing the variables that he's going to have a game plan that's going to be able to take something away. And to your point, you talked about with Nick Bosa, that if you can't just you're not just going to line up and chip him and send a tight end over there and help in that way, but you get unblocked looks, you're going horizontal, you're making him think and do all those things. Andy Reid was so good over the years of being able to, if you can't stop them, at least try to confuse them, slow them down, get things crossing in front of them. So I expected a ton of motion, especially when there were a lot of people talking about the communication at the second level and the linebackers, you want to attack those. Well, that's Andy Reid's MO, just get window dress just move guys around, get everybody moving all over the place. And we saw with a couple of the touchdowns, it wasn't necessarily for the linebackers at the second level, but you saw the communication passing off those the man coverage routes on the touchdown to Sky Moore and the touchdown to Tony. But when you say diverse and multiple with the running game, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, they just did a lot of different things, right? I am often upset at their run games. I feel like it's too boring at times. It's just kind of hand the ball, run between the tackles. But if you noticed, there was a lot of times they did some of the counter plays where they moved, they pulled linemen. Even the first run play of the game, Creed kind of comes out and blocks Sweat on that little trap thing there. Obviously the third down, the little Lombardi sweep, the Buck sweep. They just the long run early in the game where they had the Sky Moore motion across, and they had Noah Gray come backwards. They run the little outside zone, mid zone run play. They just had a multiple variety of things to show the Eagles. And so what happens is when you try to manipulate the linebackers, essentially, right? You want to get their eyes to look in different places. And because if their eyes look in the wrong places, for just a split second, they're too slow to the ball. We call those eye violations, right? When they're looking, oh, here we go. And if they look right here left, but the ball's going right, that split second is enough for that ball just to bounce out and then to be late. And now it's, 7-yard gain, not a 3-yard gain. And Andy Reid's just really good at that. And we saw that happen throughout the game. And again, I just think the offensive line, too, took it upon themselves to just kick some ass. If you watch them run off the ball, their physicality, again, started from play one. And again, I feel like there are weeks you can tell, we really emphasize running the football this week in practice. We really came out with the attitude of we're going to kick their ass up front this week. And the Chiefs' offensive line did that. And was very impressive to watch. The inside three guys are good, man. They came out to run the football. They did that. They threw off the ball. I mean, Joe Thuney has played 2 Super Bowls now. Aaron Donald was one of them. And then the Eagles interior offensive line. He's been nails, dude. He's been so good in those games. Obviously, Creed in space. I mean, Trey was getting after it. Brown and Wiley. A lot of the run game in this game, Brown and Wiley weren't as involved, I think, as they had been in other games. But the inside three was a kind of a big part of how successful they were.
Let's say you saw the parade. I'm sure you saw the pictures of the 0 sacks. Zero sacks. Put it on a T-shirt shirts that they were all wearing. It was pretty good. What was the most, I don't say surprising performance to you in this game, but you talked about the 3 interior guys. If you're talking about the Chiefs' offensive line and their performance and what they did, who stood out to you the most?
It probably was. It's funny. I thought they would help Wiley a lot, so I kind of thought he would play okay, and they did more than they never helped Orlando Brown. Like, he was by himself the whole game. I mean, he had Josh Sweat by himself. He had kind of a tougher assignment during the game. I want to acknowledge one thing. Okay, this is something that's really bugging me. Okay, this field sucked. Correct.
Right.
Yes. But notice all the plays the Eagles defensive lineman slipped. There's a Chiefs offensive lineman standing right in front of them. We're acting like they had a free path to Mahomes and just fell down on that free path to Mahomes. There's a reason, like the Chiefs defensive linemen, the offensive linemen were in their way. It wasn't like they had pushed them and fallen down. Yeah. Could they have turned the corner a couple of times? Absolutely. But does that mean they're sacking Mahomes, hitting? Absolutely not. There were times, yes, they fell down at the snap. I get all those. That kind of besides the point of those. But the Chiefs defense line also had to play in those conditions as well, right? And we saw Mahomes slip as well. I just thought that Brown and Wiley did a really fantastic job. And again, Brown did it with less help. They game planned to help Wiley more, right? With a lot of what they did. And Brown was on an island. And, that's, he did. He said in the post-game interview, like, he wanted to play left tackle. This is what he wanted. He wanted this opportunity to play left tackle. He said for the Ravens, obviously, for what his dad did, but he wanted to play left tackle. Well, excuse me, what Ogden did, which is what kind of like, what his dad played with Ogden. But like, he wanted to play left tackle for Super Bowl winning team, and he did it. That's what he did. And he did it by himself for the most part in this game without any help.
I love it. I'm throwing this name out there. I was figuring out an excuse to bring this topic in where I had field conditions. I was going to ask you about that, but I just love the fact that since you were with the Chiefs and the guys were involved, but like, for the field conditions to be they were, the way the guys were slipping, and then to find out afterwards that, the Eagles players were switching their cleats up and the Chiefs players never switched their cleats because Allen Wright and Schropp and all those guys had them taken care of in that kind of way, where just you feel like you can give everybody in that organization credit after the fact of everybody doing their jobs.
It's interesting. I was listening to the New Heights podcast, and Jason, Travis's brother, was talking about the cleats. And he said they all went out and like they warmed up, like they had it on their mind. He went out and warmed up, and like he's like, "Oh, my cleats are fine. I'm okay with it." It's like they had a chance to switch their cleats. My brother commented about Allen and the job that they do in making guys. I don't know if anyone wore different cleats, but they were certainly prepared for that. They went out and tested and whatnot. I mean, the logos were certainly worse. It was pretty bad. The logos. The NFL just can't have that, right? I think the reason the Super Bowl is done in Arizona and in like a warm weather city is because the conditions should be perfect. Like I want the Super Bowl to be played in perfect conditions where there's no excuses, right? That either the turf is perfect, the grass is perfect, the weather is perfect. I don't want snow. I don't want rain. I want perfect. I don't want to have this game end and say, well, it was the fault of the grass. It was the fault of the officials. I just want there to be nothing. Just talk about the game. And unfortunately, but the grass was bad for both sides. And I think, I'll tell you what's been great is to hear the Eagles coaches and players not blame anything but themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like they have earned, not that they earn my respect. I respect them beforehand, but like the amount of respect I have for the way they have handled themselves. Like, when I talk about officials or other things, I always say, look, I never blame officials, right? Win or lose, draw, Chiefs game, Oregon game, whatever it is. I don't blame officials because we can always do things differently as players. I can control what I can control. And I loved hearing the Eagles talk about that. I control what I control. Again, Jason Kelsey on his podcast. I could have ID'd someone differently. James Bradbury. Yeah, I held Juju. Did it matter for the play?
Right.
I don't know, but I held him. Like Jordan Mailata. Yeah, the field was bad, but it was bad for everybody. And I love the attitude of that because that's as players, that's how we think. Like, yeah, shit happens sometimes. I get it. Calls don't go our way. But guess what? If I do something different on this play that I control, then I don't worry about the officiating. It doesn't come down to the officiating. And I just loved hearing that from those players. Like Jalen Hurts, man, seems like the best guy, right? Like the way he talks, the way he leads. And, it's just, and I just loved hearing the personal accountability from their side, even though they played really well. And Jalen Hurts has nothing to like be accountable for. He played great. So I just liked hearing that from them. And I think it helped maybe us like get over this officiating thing because they didn't make it a big issue.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways after the game, and as somebody that didn't follow Jalen Hurts, knew him from college, but didn't really pay attention to these pressers and the way that he carried himself in situations like this. Not that they had a lot of this year with all the games that they won, but I came away like respecting the hell out of the way that Jalen Hurts carried himself and the way that James Bradbury, which goes to like the Juju comment, which I know Chiefs fans are like split on. Someone's like, "Oh, just having fun." I didn't like it. I thought James Bradbury.
I'm a little. I mean, I'm just a cranky old offensive lineman. I'm 36, but like, I just kind of wish you didn't do that. Like you won. Like, just go to your parade, get your ring in July, whenever you have your ring ceremony. Yeah,
I don't know enough about the history. If there's a history between those players, maybe they knew each other a little bit, or whatever.
It's just a different look. Yeah, it's just a different generation of guys. It's just different. These guys are just, and it is what it is. I mean, look, man, we spent segments talking about it. It's good content. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, it's good for our business, but I just do wish sometimes guys would just either win or lose. Sometimes more quietly, but it's one of those, I don't really care because I don't think they take this stuff super personal. But I had a lot of respect for the way that James Bradbury right after the game like owned up to it. It really, of course, he could have lit a fuse for Eagles fans. This would have never been if he had gone the other way and the players had gone the other way. It would be worse than it is now with the way that people are talking about it. So I left like after that. I was like, you know what? Good on him for admitting and doing that. And then when I saw the tweet, it was like, come on. Like it was not Eli Apple. It was not all this trash talking before the Bengals game. Well, that's kind of why too, like, because Bradbury said like, yeah, I held you. Then to put that out anyways, like after he kind of said like, yeah, I screwed up, didn't feel like the spirit of like the joke kind of. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, It is, but the TikTok boy though. I mean, AJ Brown. I don't know. I think he kind of won that round a little bit.
Yeah, it just got to a point where it's like, what are we doing? Can we just get ready for a parade? Can we just do this?
Come back from that one. That's hard.
All right, let's get back. Let's get back to the big boys up front because I do have a question for you. Because big storyline all year for the Chiefs was Orlando Brown Jr. betting on himself, the contract situation. If you were the Chiefs, what do you do? Because last time I checked, you let him go or you don't franchise tag him. He's going to be the best offensive tackle available in free agency unless you make a trade or do something. What do you do if you're the Chiefs?
This is really tough, right? You have Wiley's a free agent too, right? So you both have to. Yeah. The reports or early reports are they're going to franchise tag Brown again, I think, right?
I would guess so. They can't just let him. I mean, I'm just going to let him walk, but
you can't. You probably can't spend like Trent Williams money on him, right? Yep. But he deserves to get paid something. I mean, this is the hard part about the business, right? And the Chiefs have shown with the Tyreek Hill decision, like, hey, we have a price, and But the difference is, this is now you're kind of messing with Pat Mahomes because you're messing with his blockers, right? Like, you sort of can't take that risk of not finding a left tackle. And that's different than, we can find, to me, you can find, Pat can make the wide receiving core right.
Yeah.
You can't make a left tackle right. Like if you don't have a left tackle, you're kind of in trouble. And so you might have to overpay a little bit from what you're comfortable doing just to say, we have that position and Pat, we don't worry about that. And, maybe, and you drafted Lucas Niang, like at some point he has to play. So I imagine he will play right tackle and Wiley will walk and he'll get a deserved payday somewhere else. That's sort of the way the Chiefs, I think, for the most part, handle offensive line. They don't typically pay a lot of their own guys, right? They haven't in the past. I mean,
not lately. There for a while they did. I mean, they took care of Fisher, they took care of Mitch, they took care of LDT. So there was a stretch there.
Fisher was the only guy they drafted they paid.
Right? LDT. They paid LDT.
LDT, yeah, because they didn't pay Geoff and they didn't
pay Mitch.
Rodney. They didn't pay Mitch.
Mitch Morse. Mitch Morse, yeah.
Mitch Morse, yes. But they didn't draft my brothers. So I think they probably let Wiley walk, and they have Lucas Niang. That's why he's there, right? And put Lucas in right tackle, and then pay Brown, and maybe the draft this year is not tackle heavy, so I would imagine that's not what they're looking. I think if it was like a big left tackle draft, maybe you pay Wiley and you draft a left tackle, but it's not really that draft this year. So I'd imagine that's what they do. They pay Brown, let Wiley walk, put Niang in right tackle, and I would imagine at some point they draft a lot. I mean, Kennard was drafted last year too. He's probably playing guard, I'd imagine. So that's how I think they look at it.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had this conversation too, and we have it with Chiefs fans and everybody every year, because at this time of the year, you're talking about roster composition. Where do you try and attack certain things, knowing if free agency comes first? If there's not a tackle available, if they did want to move on, or if they tagged them and then tried to make a tag and trade or whatever it is, you're not leveraging. I'm not going to explain this very well. You're not setting yourself up to just being like, oh, they'll draft a left tackle and just put him there. You can't plan like that as a GM.
No, you can't.
You don't know who's going to be there picking so late, and it's after free agency. So if you don't get your guy, there's nobody available unless you're making a big trade, and then you're completely have no leverage. And so you're at a pretty bad spot at that point. So that can't be your plan. I'd still be surprised if the Chiefs didn't take another young tackle at some point in this draft, just because, I mean, everybody's getting older up there, and whatever they're going to do with Orlando Brown Jr., even if you pay him, it's still draft another young player, because Lucas Niang's injured. You don't know what you have in Kennard, and to your point, might slide in and play guard. Area to add. But anything else stand out to you about the Chiefs' offseason decisions they have to make across the entire roster?
The wide receiver, obviously, you have to figure out. I think they need number one wide receiver, whoever that. And I don't think Tony's that number one guy. They have to find someone. It's probably not MVS either. There's someone. Look at someone. The one question I come back to is this. This is a tight end heavy draft. And I wonder if at 32, 31, I guess this year, because there's no 32nd pick, they can luxury draft one of these tight ends. These guys are good. This is a good year. I know Kelsey's got a couple years left. I get it. But this is the year to get one if you're looking for your next guy. I don't know if Noah Gray is that guy. He's good. No. I don't know. But if you're you know what, we're 31 and, we kind of had Dalton Kincaid as a mid-first round pick, grade, and we had Luke Musgrave, and they're just kind of sitting there. I think they'd be those two guys for me.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there, do you do it? And, they run a ton of 13 personnel. Fortson, I don't know what his contract situation is, but, then you have your three tight ends, Kelsey, your draft pick, and Noah Gray. And you just roll on your way with your three tight ends, and they're doing and that's the interesting part to me. They don't need a tight end.
Yeah.
And Kelsey said this year on the podcast too. I go back to he said this is a tough year for him physically. It just was hard to get through. He's getting older. It's harder. Again, no, make the very clear. They're not replacing Travis Kelsey. No. This is such a tight end heavy draft that I could see them saying look, if one of those guys falls to 31 that we really like.
Jeff, I've said this for 4 years.
What?
I've said this for 4 years about the Chiefs.
Oh, really?
Taking a young tight end. It was this is the year. There's this guy, and this guy. And it's they've got to get somebody at some point. They've got to get somebody.
The best year it's been in a long time, though, for tight ends.
Really?
The Musgrave kid from Oregon State, if he's there at 31, I don't know how you pass on him if you're Kansas City.
All right.
Dude,
I've been
fucking play.
I spent some time last night watching a few of the wide receivers, just because you mentioned it before. But there's only 3 guys under contract beyond this year. It's MVS. Now it's Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore.
Yeah.
McColl's a free agent. Juju's a free agent. Expect Juju to come back depending upon the market, because last year the wide receiver market went bananas. Juju's one of the better wide receivers available in this market based on how the prices were set last year. So who knows what he may get offered if he goes out onto the market. But I was watching Zay Flowers, the kid from Boston College. Only thing I don't know about that is he's similar in stature.
They need a
Tony, Sky Moore.
They need
the same build.
Ball. guy. Like
Big.
The one wild card is if Justin Ross. Is that his name? Justin Ross?
Yeah,
from Clemson. If it gets cleared and is healthy to play, he's that guy. If he's can be healthy, but who knows?
That long,
tight end.
lanky.
It's a good tight end season. It's a good tight end year.
That'd be a good one. We've got months to talk about that and to overanalyze all of that, and we get into
crazy.
The crazy thing about winning the Super Bowl too, Jeff, and you were mentioning it earlier, is that there's no time. Like all of a sudden, like we're 2 weeks away from the combine.
I know.
Like, oh my God, how did this sneak up on us? Like, oh, we made it to the Super Bowl, and there's an extra week in there, and next thing you know, combine.
Yes.
The NFL has done a phenomenal job at making something right around the corner all the year.
Yeah, it's wild.
Keeps us busy. Well,
I know.
we appreciate you for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.
I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of different things going on. I appreciate you stopping by, talking a little O-line, a little Super Bowl, a little Chiefs offseason. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll have more content here at KC Sports Network. Wrapping up the Chiefs Super Bowl win over the Eagles and getting you ready for the offseason with all the different stuff coming up. Our draft content starts next week. We'll have all the interviews and everything we got out at the Shrine Bowl in Las Vegas, plus much more. Make sure to stay tuned here to KC Sports Network. Appreciate all you. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.